forces, especially as we continue to downsize to do the high-end, the regional wars, and the fire-end SSC conflicts that take up most of our time. Some people have made the point that we have increased our deployments in the 1990s 3- to 4-fold. So the same military that's downsized is doing more and more missions across the spectrum, and they're finding themselves not really catching up with what's going on. There are a number of units that have to be broken up and given to these slices given to other units. You'll hear people in the field saying, you know, we never see our support. Our support's never here. They're deployed all the time. They're not on our base, and it's because we don't have enough of those capabilities to go across the spectrum. I'm almost out of time, so I'll quickly wrap up here. And so what I say is going on is that there's really a question of where do you pool the combat support and service support assets. And these are just a sprinkling of the types of units that are involved in supporting the main battlefield. And so there's a time sharing of these low density assets. They are really being used by everybody. And so you have to look at where to pool these assets. I would argue that today we are pooled at the division and corps base, but in the future you may have to look at a different way of pooling. Maybe you blur the lines between the division and corps, and you pool these assets at installations so that everybody in the force can use them. And the headquarters are just that. They are just headquarters with no organic support to them. We're experiencing this need for more changes in task organization. It's going to lead to a revolution in how we task organize. Right now, the process takes a long time to change. So I'm probably going to stop with this because I'm out of time. But basically saying that, well, 2 more slides and I'll stop. The future joint headquarters, I will argue, 2 more slides, is a fully independent headquarters with no organic units. Now, some people will argue with this and say, no, you've got to have fixed units. But if you do that, this headquarters cannot deploy to the rapid contingencies of the future. They should be able to take a headquarters out and deploy it and have it stay on its own and not worry about the other organizations under it that they would have command and control. It's going to be interneted. It's going to be flexible and joint. These last couple of slides are going to show you the complexity of what a headquarters has got to do. It has to be able to echelon in several ways in terms of space, time, objectives, and functions. So one headquarters is not going to be able to do it all on the battlefield. And here's just kind of a snapshot of how complex what this headquarters has to do. If you look in the left column, it has to be able to worry about different time frames. The headquarters has to look at the close battle. It has to look at the fight that's coming towards it within the next 24 to 40 hours. And it has to look deep at 72 hours and beyond. One headquarters probably can't do all of that. It has to be able to echelon in terms of space, all the way back to CONUS. It has to worry about all of the different objectives. And what we normally do is we give a headquarters a mission. Your mission is to seal off the border. Your mission is to open the relief corridor. And you would give these headquarters different missions, which means perhaps you need more headquarters in the future that are not tied to organic units. And this just talks about what maybe one headquarters may not be capable of doing it. If you're going to prick the brigade and say, let's get rid of our divisions and corps, don't need them in the future, we're going to flatten the organization and go straight to one headquarters does it all, I would be concerned because the brigade headquarters of today lacks the experience to be a JTF headquarters. It lacks it because of the experience of the staff. If you go into an average brigade headquarters, most of those guys in there are captains. You might have a couple of majors, which haven't been through the joint schooling process and really haven't worked above the company and battalion level. But yet, if they're going to a JTF environment, they may be working with other brigades and general officers from other countries as captains and majors being expected to coordinate at that level. I would argue they don't have the experience. And they also lack the expertise and skills at that level. So perhaps for that organization, a 2 or 3 star headquarters might be a better solution for a JTF headquarters by design. I'll just go ahead and conclude this point by saying my recommendations, I think, for where the Army should go is the Army needs to look at non-fixed organizations for the future, that it needs to be more dynamically responsive to what the needs are in the field. Look at some of the headquarters being independent, but also consider to have several echelons of headquarters. Many of the other services have gone to expeditionary forces. They've gone to, in the case of the Air Force, Air Expeditionary Forces. The Navy has moved in that direction, the Marine Corps, the MAGTF. That the Army really, although it does it on a daily basis, task organize for all these missions, move more towards an expeditionary force environment and consider experimenting with these ideas to give it the maximum flexibility for the future. I would also look at the Army remaining a balanced force, because that's what's going to help you in a very uncertain environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, first let me thank the Woodrow Wilson Center, as well as the Association of the United States Army for sponsoring this and inviting me to talk today about something that I think many of us in the audience love more than anything else, and that's the United States Army. I'd also like to thank Carl Landiger, chairman of Black Clawson Company, for conceiving of this idea. Otherwise, I don't think we would necessarily be here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here because 5 years ago I wrote a book called Breaking the Phalanx. The title referred to the victory of the smaller, more agile Roman legions over the large, unwieldy Macedonian phalanx. The breaking of the phalanx was enormously important. It represented a paradigm shift, if you will, in warfare, and it had far-reaching effects. Roman power expanded, Macedonian military strength simply collapsed. This said, I believe that another paradigm shift in warfare is upon us, and I strongly believe that we should play the part of the Romans, not the Macedonians. Today, we are confronted in military terms with the cumulative effect of 50 years of global change in human affairs that profoundly influences the conduct of warfare. Yet the United States Army organizes, trains, and equips according to beliefs about warfare that derive substantially from the two world wars. The result is an unchanging industrial age structure inspired by Henry Ford's assembly line and Frederick Taylor's scientific management, a structure that is ill-suited to war with information age enemies, enemies that can work around American strengths to do enormous damage to our forces and to the nation. This division-based World War II structure, with all of its echelons of command and control, its large headquarters and extensive logistical tail, is simply too unwieldy organizationally to move and to fight at a pace suited to modern conditions. Desert Storm really demonstrated this, but our easy victory blinded us to the lessons we should have learned. To avoid being driven back to our borders in the years ahead, we, like the Romans, must field new ground forces that are powerful, adaptive, and responsive. Army forces cannot slowly build up combat power in the future as they did in World War II, in Korea, in Vietnam, and the Gulf without risking attack. Today and in the future, weapons of mass destruction or disruption make an extended preparation of Army ground forces in close proximity to enemy forces far too risky. This means that the Army must deploy critical warfighting capabilities, arrive ready to fight, and accomplish known objectives quickly, not task-organized soldiers, firepower, and equipment on an ad hoc basis, trying to figure out what to do at the last minute, as was the case during the recent Yugoslav Air War. The current Army structure and organization for combat, with its roots in World War II, is still designed to deploy mass, not capabilities. Transformation must address this challenge and today's opportunity to reform now. I do not hold a patent, by the way, on this insight. There are thousands of officers inside the United States Army, inside the United States Marine Corps, the United States Air Force, and the United States Navy who have recognized this. Many bright officers and civilians have recognized the problem, and they have proposed ways to fix it technologically. I don't have any problem with technology, but I do not think that technology alone is enough. This is because most of the current proposals miss a critical point. Today's emerging paradigm for military operations creates the unique opportunity to fundamentally reshape American military power through the integration of air, land, and naval forces within a joint network